name is Millie Rose. I would say soul and spoken word. I would say spoken word is a conversation with myself, and I use music, and when I write music, very much with just the enjoyment of singing and the freedom that comes with it. And combining the both means I both have a conversation with myself and the people listening. So that's why I like to combine both mediums. I think I took a lot of time to reflect on some of the chapters that were out of my control growing up, and I used those experiences in my music and in my poetry. And I think as I've gotten older and as I've done a lot more with the community work that I do and in the charity sector, it's really apparent that we're not alone and that everyone very much feels, if not the same experience, then fragments or just certain strands of your experience. Everyone's going to resonate. It doesn't matter what persona you're giving off, what presentation you're giving off. That mask is incredibly thin layered, and I think I've just learned how to wear that narrative of mental health with authenticity, but also not shape it in the way where it's like a victim's kind of narrative. It's very much like a community space of we all experience it, we might as well talk about it, we might as well share, not to the point where anyone's uncomfortable to share, but very much an exchange of let's creatively exchange and very much recognise that you've experienced that and I've experienced this. I think the music industry does value women, emotional story and their music at certain times of the year or when it is profitable, marketable, for sure. It depends how you perceive your music, and it also depends how you measure success. For me, I don't put myself in typical music industry environments. I put myself in environments that make my body and mind feel safe. I don't feel the need. I think the term networking is really interesting, because when you're young and you're entering the music industry, I think the word networking can make you position you in a way where you've got to connect and you've got to do this and you're hungry for it and all of this kind of stuff. And that's not any different to what I kind of vision as the music industry sometimes, where you constantly need this and you're hungry for this and you've got to connect with that person because they know that person. For me, as a woman, you've got to be a little bit more diligent and a little bit more methodical about the spaces you're going to go in. Unfortunately, it's not as professional as the kind of glossy marketing of everything. It's not as glossy as that. Working in the music industry myself, and also being teetotal and making a choice not to drink, you very much see from an outer lens the unprofessional nature of the music industry. That's not a judgment on people that drink, that's a judgment on behaviour. I would say, to go back to the question of being a woman and kind of the waves of where it's marketable and when it is emotionally valued, very much so, but I make a choice not to enter those environments that make my body and mind feel safe. It's being in tune with that and trusting your instincts with people and environments. At the end of the day, if you are uncomfortable in an environment, you can leave. You don't need to stay. I think it's very much dependent on how a boy has been raised, what their mother, what their father, and external kind of parental influences have been, and their environment. I think I've been around enough kind of boys in the charity sector, and when I go in, so I do knife crime prevention workshops in school, and I do poetry workshops with them, so I very much see the response to me as a woman, and them hearing the term poetry, thinking it's a little bit lame, it's a little bit enough, it's not for me. But then I rephrase it as spoken word, and that really is, in its rawest form, a conversation and me valuing what you've got to say. It doesn't have a structure, it doesn't have a criteria. And I think that's the most important thing. But I would say that boys are quite quick to, generally speaking, quite quick to be intimidated by women who have something to say, know what they want to say, know how to express it. Because I think that it's not taught. I think that we live in a society now where nothing is taught, everything's instantaneous, and there's not a lot of conversation around the instantaneous photos, videos, and school. It's not organic, it's not having conversations in between these massive things that are happening, whether it's knife crime, whether it's gang culture, whether it's grooming. The conversations happening in between don't allow for the questions. What does that mean to you? Why do you do music? There's no time. Partly because a lot of the kids I work with don't have parents that ask those questions, or they're not educated, or their parents weren't educated, and it's constantly not breaking the pattern, and the cycle continues. To answer your question, I do think it intimidates boys, but I also think it comes from a place of immense insecurity and vulnerability, and wanting to get to that place but not knowing how to. It depends the time of which I've written something or done a piece of music. I think there were times I wrote music and I've written a piece of poetry, and I look back at it and my God, I was in so much pain. And I think I was crying out for that, I was in so much pain. So I lost my dad when I was 19, same age I decided not to drink anymore. I cut out a lot of habits at that age and went a little bit diligent and a little bit productive, but I say a little bit. I was so scared of going down the road of like destruction that I went the other side. I went the other way, like, but to an extreme level, like training, boxing, like getting up at 5 a.m, doing uni, working, age like from 16 to 19, and bearing in mind my mum and I were moving house like every 6 months, like going through like the housing kind of crisis. If you don't know, it's when you don't have social housing, so they put you on a temporary list, and that lasted for 10 years. The reason why that question's relevant is because the one constant in my life was music, was writing, and that stayed my consistency while everything out of my control was like not in the hands of my choice and in my decisions. So why that's relevant is because I didn't realise how much pain I was in until I read back the kind of catalogue of like work that I'd written during those years. I would say that if you're trying to articulate something but you're not knowing what you're trying to articulate in your work, it usually is hurt. It is usually pain. It is usually something that is so hard to digest yourself that you do put it in another external outlet like music, like art. It might not even be something artistic. It might be sport. It might be boxing. It might be swimming, whatever it is. But yeah, I think I was in a lot of pain when I wrote that. So I am the founder of Crossword Lyric. The reason I wanted to do Crossword Lyric comes from, I go back to the housing crisis. So my mum and I came to London when I was 11, and we started our kind of London chapter in a women's refuge. If people don't know what a women's refuge is, that is a place for vulnerable women who are fleeing from domestic violence. And I was 11 years old. My mum was very much like, hey, fresh start, we're rebuilding. I realised that so much was out of my control. There wasn't much I could do apart from just kind of roll with the punches here and just adjust and just be as measured as possible and lean into music as much as possible. And with that, I didn't really have a consistent community. Like moving around so much, there wasn't a consistent community of people that I felt I could connect with. And I think in turn, it was quite a lonely process, like growing up a lot older before your years, before you've reached an age of like really digesting the kind of what's going on around you. And I just couldn't relate to people my age anymore. Like I found it really difficult to relate to people at my own age. I made choices that were far more adult, when I was quite young. Now my mum and I live in King's Cross. That was about 5 years ago now. So we've been staying in the same place and we're not moving again, which is amazing. But we got that call in mid-lockdown that it was our turn on the list to actually get social housing, and the whole world was silent while, in COVID, while my mum and I were like jumping for joy. So it was a very funny time. But when we got settled, when we moved and we were like, okay, exhale, we don't have to move again. I was very much like, I want a platform for community. I want it to be consistent for people. I want it to be consistent for myself. But equally, I know how it felt not having that consistency, and say there was one platform that was consistent for one person every month. That could change the game for someone. Finding a community, finding like a one space a month that they can come and like read a poem or even just talk about their day. That's 5 minutes that people are listening to them. You don't know if they've been heard that day. You don't know if they've been listened to that day. That might be the only 5 minutes they have. So I wanted to start the platform with for a few reasons. A community for myself, not in a selfish way, but it's an exchange. A community for other people, a community for me. To build confidence, to encourage unfinished work, to get rid of perfectionism in the arts, because we do get in our heads about perfectionism in the arts, and to build connections. And it's, in terms of where I want it to go, I want it to branch out into different strands. I want it to go into schools. I want it to cater to adults. I want it to cater to the elderly. I want to take it everywhere. I think everyone deserves, despite what kind of stage you're at with writing, you don't even need to be able to write. I don't even like reading particularly, but I love writing. The irony of that. So yeah, all stages. I think we've all got something to say, and I think we can all benefit from having that space. So yeah, just reach more people.
I'll hold a light, 'cause when I lost you, I used to dive head first, but tell me, where are we landing? Said all of these twists and these turns come with learnings I can't ignore. But sitting on my floor and picking at my flaws, but finding the beauty in the little things again. Sitting on my floor and picking at my flaws, but finding the beauty in the little things again. I'm swimming in the deep end, swimming in the deep end, swimming in the deep, deep end. To anyone who supports, whether it's me personally, whether it's the art, been there as a friend, been there on Instagram, whether it's been Crossword lyric, whatever it is, it's greatly appreciated, and it's people need people at the end of the day, so yeah, I really appreciate it.